Hello, hey, hi, how's it going? It has been a hot minute and I have to say that I've missed you all. But anyways, we're just gonna get into it. Today we are going to try airbrushing, which I was super excited for. Now I bought this unit way back in the day. So this is the beginning of COVID. So like beginning of 2019, 2022. And it's nothing crazy. It's just like one of the little tiny air compressor ones that like spits out like 32 PSI. The PSI will make a difference depending on like whether or not you are going to be using thicker material, thinner material, and even how thick or thin the lines are going to be. But anywho, now the first time that I tried this, I tried it with acrylic paints and it didn't turn out. And then I just ended up putting it in a box and storing it away in my closet, as one does as an artist. You know you do it too. Don't even lie. How many paintbrushes, paint kits, pencils, markers, pencil crayons, charcoal, whatever it may be, do you have stored that you haven't touched in decades? Question to yourself, should I throw it out? Has it even gone bad at this point? Is this still usable? Exactly. That's what I thought. You think in your head, I'm gonna get to it at some point in time in some way. I am, however, sad to say that by the time that I actually ended up pulling out this airbrush, the cost of it significantly decreased. I'm just using a basic handheld air compressor one that you can easily find on Amazon for as low as $30 to $40 Canadian. That back in the day, I did end up spending about, I think it was like 60 some odd dollars, because this was new to the market and I just had to have it because it was going to make everything so simple and so smooth, and I could finally add color for quick time. Little did I know, there's a lot more to airbrushing than one initially thinks. I am going to tell you that now. As you've probably seen from the thumbnail, I am going to be painting a tarot card today with a lovely axolotl. An axolotl, you ask? Why? Well, because look at them, they are so adorable. Look at that face. One of the biggest challenges to airbrushing that I found, because I thought it was just going to be simple and easy and you just, point and shoot and spray, but no. Paint gets everywhere and everywhere that you don't want it to be. So having some sort of stencil to mark off the areas that you don't want the paint to go is a must. The first thing that I did was I did tape off the specific areas that I didn't want the first layer to get to before I started to do a little bit of a mix. I did do some ChatGPT, Google Gemini to see how I was able to make my existing acrylic paints into a material that was going to actually work inside the airbrush. Gemini and ChatGPT told me basically all I would need is the slow dry material that I have in the Liquitex. Then I would just have to use distilled water to water it down. From there, I did a 30% of the slow dry fluid and about 70% of water. Now it did ask for distilled, but I was lazy and just used tap water and it worked out beautifully. It worked out fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I don't know why I wanted distilled water. It's not like it's being the impurities or whatever is really going to impact the paint. These aren't the exact percentages because straight up, I just eyeballed it and just went into town. After I did the mixture, then I did I'd say about a 50-50 split of the golden liquids and then the mixture that I had created. The whole point of airbrush paint is that you want it to be able to coat the side, but you want it to be able to run down. So the consistency that they recommended, that it should be the consistency of 2% milk. So I tried to match it as much as possible. I did use other kind of materials within this, so I didn't just use the acrylic liquids. I did end up using a little bit of the acrylic inks. Obviously, as you know, I love those. And then I also went in with like some heavy body. The heavy body was a lot harder and it became a lot more transparent because you're adding a lot more of a dilution to the formula compared to, say, the golden liquids. Right off the bat, it actually worked out beautifully and it flowed smoothly and it was fantastic. And I just kind of kept building up the layers based off of what I wanted. These hand compressors, they're really cool for larger areas, but when it came to the finer tooth areas, so if you say we're trying to do an outline, it doesn't have enough of a PSI, basically the air compression in it, in order to give you those really detailed lines that you see, if somebody's writing a name on a shirt or doing an outline on canvas or something like that. But for the bolder areas, this worked out beautifully. So I'm gonna wait a little bit and keep playing with this a little bit more to see if maybe later on in the future, if I want to upgrade, because we're trying to save some money up in here. You know how it goes. You don't want to be spending too much, but at the same time, you want to play with all the toys. But this has been sitting in my closet long enough that I'm like, I should probably end up using this a little bit more before I jump jump on that bandwagon because I'm easily going to spend $80 on even half of the compressor. For the clouds, I literally just ripped the side of a cardboard piece of paper just to kind of get the edges that I want, and then just laid it down and then kept on layering it from there in order to give it that gradient. And I just, played around with it. Like, where do I want to have the clouds? Where do I want the darker points? Where do I not want the darker points? And I kept building until it looked good. That's literally how it went. I didn't really have a master plan going into this. I hadn't used this since basically I opened it up, and that was an utter fail the first time. So I can't really say that I have a comparison. The tape was a lifesaver for the border lines. That really came in handy. And as you probably saw earlier on in the video, that I did use an X-Acto knife, and I went around the washi tape just to make sure that I was able to get the exact shape of it. Have you guys ever spray painted before? Because or know what these are? These are this gun is specifically supposed to be meant for makeup, I do believe, from what I was seeing, but it's an airbrush. It works either way. I don't know how you're supposed to airbrush your face though, because I've seen people do eyeshadow with it, and it looks more complicated than just eyeliner and eyeshadow. I'm just I don't want to spray that in my face. I'll pass on that one there. Once I was done putting on the airbrush, I did go back in to add in, the stars details and the little white blotches, and just bring out that cosmic aspect to it, and just kind of kept going. I did use the solid color, but I also used the dab effect in order to lift off any extra paint that I may not have wanted, but just by touching it lightly, and it was able to pick up a lot of the excess paint to kind of give it that transparent look. And of course, because after I did the stars, every cloud needs the silver lining. So I just used a very, very light transparent form in order to just give a couple of the shadows, a couple of the clouds, just like that very edge of light that you would normally see poking out. I won't lie, the reveal for this was so juicy to me. Once I had the stars down and everything looked so clean, and it really looked more like the galaxy that I really wanted it to be, and removing the tape to reveal the underlayer and how the sharpness was ooh, chef's kiss. I absolutely loved it. Fun tip though, because the cardboard that I'm using isn't meant for, it's not a canvas, so if I tear off the paint, it's going to literally rip the paper. So using a hairbrush, I was able to heat up the washi tape, and it came off like butter. It's just so smooth. And any kind of resistance that I had, I just made sure to aim a little bit of heat at it in order to kind of loosen up the sticky parts, and made sure that I ram hand over after to make sure it was clean. Once I did that, I added in another layer of tape, blocked off all of the areas that I painted, and then started doing the same thing for the back galaxy within the actual frame. Now you might be wondering why I chose an oxalato for my tarot card. I don't know if this is going to be a series, but it's something that personally, I've always, used tarot cards. I've played with tarot cards. I have this, I'm very much like that fantasy nerd where if it's got goblins and fairies and werewolves and whatever in it, I am so down for those storylines. Tarot cards are not something new for me, so I really wanted to give that a try. I might actually do more of the arcane for these ones here, but I did a little bit of digging, because I was curious about them. Where did tarot cards actually start? What are they? Where did they exist from? But just to kind of give you just a fascinating little backstory. So if you don't know, there is the standard tarot card deck, which has 78 cards. I am definitely not at this time going to be doing 78 cards. That's not going to be a thing. If I do turn this into a series, it will probably start off with the basic major arcana, which is the 22 card deck. Those are the usual ones that you've probably seen in movies and on TV shows. So the Fool, the Magician, the Chariot. This one, I'm using the World card. I'll get into why I chose the World card for this one here in just a little bit. But did you know that tarot cards actually started off by being used as a trick-taking card game? So these were never originally meant for the occult. These were legitimately just a card game, no difference than if you played like Go Fish, Solitaire, or Crazy Eights with a friend. It wasn't until like the 18th century, like somewhere in France or Italy or somewhere, I don't remember specifically, where the occult and fortune telling really got into play. Two authors started to incorporate a lot more meaning into each card and then started to assign specific things. They incorporated a lot of the ancient Egyptian wisdom as well as Jewish mysticism into the tarot card deck, and then it just kind of expanded from there. The oldest tarot card deck was actually created in the 15th century, and it's still kicking around in some sort of museum somewhere. The artwork is actually fantastic because it's within the late Gothic and early Renaissance era of artwork where, you know, they used a lot more tempera paints and everything. Oh, do you guys remember, like, if you're in high school, you might take art classes and everything. And it was one of my favorite classes, obviously. And I absolutely fell in love with the Renaissance period and finding the backstories of all of the artists. And I fell in love with a lot of the late Gothic era too. So looking at these cards, I was just like, it's so pretty. And going through them, because yeah, I did a full deep dive into these cards, and I really just I use them, I play with them, I've seen them, I've gotten readings myself from professionals, because why not? You live once. If it's true, it's true. It's not, it's not. If it's game, then hey. In my point of view, some people believe in it, some people don't, and that's fine. Too much weird stuff has happened to me in the past where I gotta believe in something more than just what the world presents. As I mentioned before, you guys are probably wondering why I didn't go with the standard world card theme when it comes to the tarot cards, and why I chose to go with the axolotl as well as the universe. To be dead honest with you, it's because ChatGPT told me to. So let me explain. I had originally designed this specific card. So I drew the axolotl, I drew him in a bubble. I knew I wanted to put him in the universe. That was first off the bat. I put a frame around it, and at that point in time, I was just like, what else do I want to do with this guy? On a reading for tarot cards, there are two ways that you can read a tarot card. It can be upright or it can be in reverse. Each section has a different meanings. The world card in an essential, if it's upright, it's like joyous accomplishments, you've completed something whole, something has come to an end, but you're on a new horizon and starting to take new opportunities that are going to open up a little bit deeper, where you're connecting to the universe a little bit more. Compared to if it is reversed, it could mean that there is going to be like a delay within the goals that you're trying to achieve, or lack of closure into something that is making you basically stuck and unable to move forward. Unfilled potential, so on and so forth, feeling disconnected or not aligned in the universe, or something is just off. When I put the idea into ChatGPT as to what I was planning and what I was drawing, it came back with the axolotl's juvenile feature, so how it retains its larva look and form, beautifully symbolizes a state of completion and wholeness that is still open-ended and adaptable. It's a world, air quotations, that is fully realized yet forever retains its youthful essence and potential for continued evolution. This is a very deep and personal take on achieving integration. The cosmic background in this piece expands the concept to a universal scale. It suggests mastery not just for one personal world, but a profound understanding and integration with a wider cosmos. The planets orbiting the central figure reinforce the sense of a complete and harmonious universe revolving around a center achieved self. For me, I just thought he was adorable. I liked him as an idea as a tarot card, and I just wanted to make him into a tarot card because why not? Look at him, he's adorable. Axolotls are adorable. I'm obsessed with the TikTok video where they draw faces on the glass for the axolotl. I'm sure you guys have seen it. I think it's amazing, and it's beautiful, and it's lovely. Anywho, so obviously, as you can tell, I'm not drawing this for any kind of occult purposes or religious purposes. I'm legitimately just drawing this because I think he's adorable and cute, and I want it. And he's now on my wall, and I'm happy. But I think I might actually make this into a series because it would be fun to have my own little zhuzh of cards with the major arcana. Maybe, possibly. What do you guys think? Would you be interested in seeing more weirdly abstracted versions of these tarot cards? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you haven't already, hit subscribe to check out other videos as well as check out the upcoming videos that I have planned. I have 3 new prints that I am ready to go and paint and draw and explore with, which is super, super exciting. Yo, I'm actually excited for the next pieces because if you got my last video, if you haven't, check it out. But I am very impressed with what I've come up with. Now, once I was done airbrushing, I had mentioned earlier that the machine doesn't like to draw really, really thin lines. So that posed a little bit of a challenge because obviously I can't get the line work that I really want within this. And this is where the good old fashioned paintbrush and paints come into play. Now, I did add the highlights onto each of the planet, and it was a little bit more of a headache than I wanted it to be. I tried to use the stencil pieces that I had before that I used to block it off in order to put the white highlights in, but it didn't turn out as smoothly as I wanted to. I should have probably just freehanded it, but I can't draw straight lines, let alone paint straight lines, so we tried to cheat and it didn't work. I am getting better though. The planets that I chose, I legitimately just looked it up. I went with the closest planets to the moon and I tried to keep it, or to the moon, closest planets to the Earth, and I tried to keep it fairly symmetrical and kind of guesstimate like what sizes they would be based off of the planetary distance from the Earth, then actually used a gradient of color over it to kind of push them back into the background for each of the planets. I think Jupiter was my favorite planet to paint, I'm not gonna lie. It was smooth, it went well. This is the first time that I'm painting color on white paper. I usually stain it. Moving forward, I am going to be staining all of my pieces depending on the color and the form because all of the color bled through. So of course, the same thing that we experienced before when it came to the heavy bodies, I really had to layer each of the pieces and go over it more than one time in order to make sure that, none of the paint lines were really showing. So if you ever wonder why people stain the paper, 1, it creates an ambiance that bleeds through whether you realize it or not. And 2, it hides the imperfections that you're trying to hide as you're going. Once I was done the planets and filling those in and, putting the colors over top to kind of push it back into the distance, I started on the oxalotl, which I was super, super excited for and also very terrified and scared and nervous. But I learned my lesson and decided to put an underlayer within the oxalotls so that way each of the layers would basically not show any of the white underneath. Kept it very light because I was going to do a very buildable thing, but I just kind of kept going and then coloring it in. I knew that I wanted him to look like the planet Earth, so I stuck with a green color because I knew that the blue would go over it very smoothly and give it more of a darker element later on. By the time that I was done coloring in this guy, I filled his eyes in red, and trust me, I am fully aware that he looks like a knockoff version of Reptar. Now, this Reptar looking guy really needs to change it up just quite a bit, so obviously we are gonna go back in and add in a lot of the blue. But before I did that, I kind of wanted to tackle the water that was coming off of him. At this time, you can tell by the sketch that it was very rudimentary, but I wanted to give it more of a realistic feel so that way it could splash off the bubble and then also, just add a little bit more of a realistic dimension to it, because I know he looks very cartoony. There's not much to oxalotls. They're very basic shapes and very basic forms. There's not really any folds or anything. And I couldn't add any of the markings that you would normally see on like some of the darker oxalotls because he was going to be a planet. So to keep that more, say, realism aspect to the oxalotl, I changed it up a little bit as I was going and just kept going until it started to look more like water. And again, just coloring in the basic shapes with the blue and then just blending it in as to where I wanted a lot of the watermarks and some of the highlights to be. Yeah, he totally looks like Reptar. I am fully aware he looks like Reptar. Don't worry, guys. It's gonna change. Time to make him look more like a planet. Time to add some blue. Now, I already took a pencil and kind of marked off where I wanted the land part to be and then the water, and just went in and filled in the colors and built the values around where I wanted it to be. And honestly, as soon as I did his face, I was like, oh, thank goodness. I was very like, every single time that I looked at him, and he just kept reminding me of Retarder so much that I was just like, I was becoming disheartened. I had to tackle it as soon as I possibly could. Really, I just used a wash of the colors to build up where the shadows were going to be and the darker parts to where the deeper part of the ocean would be as well, and just kept building up until I was satisfied. The land itself, I made sure to give each of the borders a little bit more of a yellow tinge, just kind of represent beach and sand, and used a little bit of the darker blue in the darker green areas just to kind of make it a little bit more cohesive as a one piece. The water was extremely challenging for me and very nerve-wracking because I did one section of it and it worked out beautifully and exactly the way that I wanted it to look. But the further I kept going with it, and I was just terrified that I was gonna lose the technique that I had figured out in order to do it, and then it was gonna mess up the entire piece. This is one of those last minute, it's either gonna make it or it's gonna break it kind of decision, but I'm very happy with the end result and how it looks. Look at his little feet. Look at them, they're so cute. He's so cute, I love him. You gotta love what you do. In total, this took me about 4 days to do from start to finish, which it's been a little bit crazy over on this side. Each day that I did it, I only had maybe 3 hours, 6 hours here kind of thing to do, from original sketch idea down to the actual drawing. Even my twin had mentioned that I am definitely getting faster because obviously I have to harass her with every single piece that I finish and be like, look what I did. Look at it, look at it. I imagine every single time I send her a picture of like a completed work, she just rolls her eyes. I can see it already. But yeah, she even said that I actually did this a lot faster than I would have in the past, which is fantastic. Now the border was a little bit hard, not the side pieces and the round bits, that was easy, that was fine. It was the very top half that I found difficult because of the symmetricalness, because of how symmetrical it was. So, and how small the detailing was. So it didn't 100% work out the way. It doesn't look 100% like copy paste from one side to the other. But again, we're doing this by hand. We're still fairly new to painting, but the end results I'm absolutely in love with. I really hope that you loved this video. If you are interested in seeing more of the tarot card arcana in my videos, please let me know, and maybe we will add it. Unsure, unclear. I think I might. I like the idea. It's just like each one, I'm like, what am I gonna do? Because I don't want to go with the basic arcana, I don't want to just because it says, a tower. Do I really want to draw just a basic tower, or do I want to mix it up and make it a little bit different, Think outside the box. But let me know if you guys would like to see a little bit more. In the next upcoming videos, we're going to go back into my mind palace, which I'm excited for because I've done something that I have never done before, which is scenes. I'm not a huge scene person. To draw a full out background scene compared to a stagnant still life image is something new, and it was fun to explore, and I'm excited to show you guys the first room in my mind palace, but that will be for another video. Something that I've never done before is drawing environments, which is brand new to me. I tend to go more, again, tattooy, neo-traditional style but I really liked how it turned out, and I'm excited for the next upcoming videos for you guys to check it out. I've been really working on perspectives, drawings, and things like that, so it's really coming into play. But I want to take the opportunity to thank you guys for checking out this video. If you haven't already, like I had said earlier, please hit that subscribe button to come along on this crazy journey as we, as we learn something new, play with new things, explore, create, adventure, dream, imagine. But here's the final piece. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Go touch paint. Bye.